He called me a dependent, a guest in the house my life savings had secured. My daughter just watched, silent, while her husband threatened to throw me out. They thought the old soldier was broken. They were about to learn I still knew how to fight a war. My name is David. For 20 years, the smell of gun oil and gunpowder was my life. It was the scent of discipline, order, protecting what mattered. After the army, I started a security firm. I taught people how to spot threats, how to assess risks, how to recognize the enemy. I just never thought the enemy would be sharing my dinner table. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone. It all started 3 years ago. My wife, Mary, passed away. The grief wasn't just sadness. It was a physical weight, an ache that stole my breath. Our old house, the one we built together, was too quiet, too full of her ghost. I was drowning in the silence. Jessica, my daughter, insisted I move in with her and her husband, Kevin. Their house was massive, all glass and steel perched on a hill, overlooking the city. It was beautiful the way a museum is beautiful. Impressive, but cold. It felt like a showroom, not a home. "Dad, you can't be alone," Jessica had said. Her eyes, so much like Mary's, were filled with concern. "We have so much space, and Lily needs her grandpa." Lily, my 5-year-old granddaughter. She was the light of my life. The thought of seeing her every day was the main reason I agreed. But there was another reason. Kevin. Kevin was an investment banker. Sharp, ambitious. He always wore suits that looked expensive, but too tight. Always talking about the next big deal. He had just started his own fund, Apex Capital. He saw my retirement savings, sitting there, safe but slow. He told me they were stagnating, rotting away in low-yield bonds, while the world moved on. "David," he had said one evening, swirling a glass of expensive whiskey. His voice was smooth, persuasive. "You need to make your money work for you. Apex is the future." He leaned in closer, flashing a watch that cost more than my old car. "We guarantee a 20% return, minimum. This isn't just retirement, David. It's Lily's legacy, a 20% guarantee." My training screamed at me. Nothing in life is guaranteed. But I was tired. I was grieving, and he was family. I ignored the alarm bells. I trusted him. So, I did it. I sold my house, liquidated my savings. I invested everything, nearly $500,000, into Apex Capital. I signed the paperwork, setting up an account managed by Kevin. My entire life's work handed over on a silver platter. In return, I got a small guest room in the basement. It was damp and smelled faintly of mildew, but I didn't complain. I quickly became the built-in babysitter, the handyman, the driver. I didn't mind. I told myself I was contributing. I was securing the future, but slowly the atmosphere shifted. Kevin's success seemed to explode overnight. A new Porsche appeared in the driveway, then a Mercedes SUV for Jessica. Designer clothes filled the closets. They hosted lavish parties. Parties for investors. The house was always full of loud, arrogant people who looked right through me. As the help, the old man in the background fading into the expensive wallpaper. As his wealth grew, his respect for me vanished. It started with small things. Little digs I tried to ignore, but those small things started adding up. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen, making Lily a sandwich. Kevin walked in, talking loudly on his phone. He stopped, looked at me, and frowned, as if I were a stain on the marble countertop. "David," he said, his tone sharp, not bothering to cover the phone's mouthpiece. "Could you do that somewhere else? I'm on an important call." "It's just a sandwich, Kevin," I said, keeping my voice level. "It's distracting," he snapped. He pointed towards the basement stairs. "Your space is downstairs." I stared at him. The kitchen I had helped stock, the granddaughter I was feeding. Suddenly it wasn't mine to use. I bit my tongue. Hard. I took Lily downstairs. We ate our sandwiches in the damp basement room. The silence down there felt different than the silence in my old house. It felt heavy, oppressive. The insults became more frequent, more blatant, and I started noticing inconsistencies. Things my training taught me not to ignore. Kevin was secretive about the fund's performance. I asked for detailed statements, Financial reports. Standard procedure for any investor. Kevin, I need to see the quarterly reports for my account, I said one morning. He was knotting his tie, looking in the mirror. He didn't even turn around. David, the paperwork is complicated, he said, dismissively. High finance jargon. You wouldn't understand it. Try me, Kevin, I insisted. It's my money. He turned around then. His eyes were cold. It's an investment, David. Not a piggy bank. It takes time and expertise. He adjusted his expensive watch. A nervous tick I noticed he did whenever he was cornered, or lying. Trust me, he said, flashing that shark-like smile. The returns are phenomenal. You don't need to worry about the details. But I did worry. In my world, the details always mattered. They were the difference between life and death. And something about Apex Capital felt very, very wrong. The tension built. It simmered under the surface of every catered meal, every forced conversation. I felt like I was walking through a minefield in my own daughter's home. Then came that cold Tuesday evening. The night everything shattered. We were having dinner, some overpriced, bland fish dish. The dining room was vast. The silence heavy. Kevin was agitated, distracted. His movements were sharp, erratic. He kept checking his phone under the table, his face illuminated by the screen. Jessica was trying to talk about Lily's school play. Kevin wasn't listening. David, he said suddenly, cutting Jessica off. He put down his fork. The metal clattered against the expensive china. The sound echoed in the large room. My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. It was the tone of an officer about to deliver bad news, or an ultimatum. What is it, Kevin? I asked, steadying my voice. Assessing the threat. He pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase, which he always kept by his side, even at the dinner table. He slid them across the table. The sound of paper on marble was deafening. We need to discuss your financial arrangements, he said. His voice was cold, businesslike. The current structure of your account at Apex is problematic. Problematic. That was a red flag. Problematic how? I asked, my eyes narrowing. It's inefficient, he continued, tapping the stack with his manicured finger. For tax purposes, and for maximizing the returns, we need to transfer the funds into the main pool. We need to streamline the management. I picked up the papers. My hands, steady in combat, trembled slightly. I read the legal jargon. It wasn't complicated. It was very clear. It was a transfer of assets agreement and a power of attorney document. He wasn't asking me to streamline management. He was asking me to surrender. Complete control of everything. Kevin, this gives you sole authority over my investment, I said, my voice flat. Complete control. I don't understand why this is necessary. It's necessary because you don't understand the complexities of high finance. David. His tone was condescending, like he was talking to a slow child. I am managing millions of dollars. I don't have time to explain every move I make. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I need full autonomy, to act quickly, to seize opportunities. Opportunities you can't even comprehend. This is my life savings, Kevin, I said, my voice rising slightly. The anger was starting to burn through the calm facade. I have a right to know how it's being invested. Kevin's face darkened. The polite mask slipped, revealing the arrogance underneath, the impatience, the contempt. Your life savings are generating more wealth than you ever dreamed of, he spat, leaning back in his chair. Thanks to me, don't question my methods. I am not questioning your methods, Kevin. I pushed the documents back toward him. The movement was slow, deliberate, final. I am refusing to sign these papers. Silence, heavy and suffocating. The air in the room crackled with tension. Kevin stood up abruptly. His chair scraped violently against the marble floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He leaned over the table, his face inches from mine. His expensive cologne was overwhelming, suffocating. Listen to me, old man, he hissed. His voice laced with venom. The facade was gone, replaced by pure, ugly hatred. I am the one generating the wealth in this family. I am the one paying the bills, maintaining this lifestyle. He paused, letting the words sink in, letting the insult fester. You are a guest here, he continued, jabbing a finger at my chest. A dependent. The words hit me like a physical blow. A dependent. After everything I had sacrificed. 20 years in the army. A lifetime of providing my home, my savings, my pride. I invested in your company. Kevin, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I trusted you.
And that trust requires obedience, he snapped. His eyes were cold, hard. I am the head of this household. I make the decisions. I decide what is best for this family. He jabbed a finger at the papers. Sign them, now. I didn't move. I held his gaze.
I saw the flicker of uncertainty behind the arrogance. He needed my signature, desperately. Or what, Kevin? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. He stood straight, crossed his arms, his expression triumphant. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. Or you can find somewhere else to live, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. I will not tolerate insubordination in my own home. The ultimatum hung in the air, sharp, cruel. It's simple, David, he concluded. Obey me or get out. I turned to Jessica, my daughter, my little girl, the one I taught to be strong, to be independent, to know her worth. I waited for her to defend me, to tell Kevin he had crossed the line, to remember who I was, to remember who she was. She stared down at her plate, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white. She didn't look up. She didn't meet my eyes. The silence stretched, agonizing, slow, and then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. A small, weak movement, a silent agreement, a surrender. That nod broke me. It wasn't Kevin's greed that destroyed me. It was Jessica's silence. Her betrayal was quiet, but it was complete. The daughter I raised had surrendered to this bully, blinded by the wealth, the lifestyle, the illusion of security. The anger drained away, leaving only a profound, hollow sadness. I realized then I truly was alone. Fine, I said. My voice was calm, steadier than I thought possible. The calm of a decision made. I stood up. I didn't look at them again. I walked down the stairs to the basement, my footsteps echoing on the cold marble floors, the sound of my own retreat. I pulled my old army duffel bag from the closet. I packed methodically, a few changes of clothes, toiletries. I picked up a framed photo of Mary and me, our wedding day. Her smile, her warmth. A lifetime ago. Muscle memory took over. Pack tight. Move fast. Leave nothing behind that matters. I walked back upstairs. Kevin and Jessica were still at the dinner table, silent, frozen in place, like statues in their cold museum of a house. They didn't even bother to watch me leave. I pulled the house key off my keychain, placed it gently on the small table by the door. The metallic click echoed in the hallway, a sound of finality. Then I opened the door and walked out into the cold night air. I didn't look back. I drove. The city lights blurred through the windshield. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. From the betrayal. From the pain. I ended up at my sister's house. Sarah lived on the other side of town. A small, cozy bungalow that always smelled of baking bread and old books. She was a retired librarian, sharp, observant, and fiercely loyal. She opened the door, took one look at my face, the duffel bag in my hand, and simply nodded. She didn't ask questions. She just knew. Kevin finally showed his true colors, didn't he? She asked, her voice tight with anger. I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat was too thick. I just nodded. Come on in, David. I just made a fresh pot of tea. I sat at her kitchen table, wrapped my hands around the warm mug. The warmth seeped into my cold hands. The silence between us was comfortable, the kind of silence that only comes with deep understanding. Finally, the words started to spill out. I told her everything. The investment, the demands for control, the ultimatum, Jessica's betrayal, the silent nod. Sarah listened patiently, her expression growing darker as I spoke, her eyes flashing with a protective fury. "That arrogant little snake," she muttered. "He's been manipulating Jessica for years, isolating her from everyone who truly cares about her." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "He saw you as a threat, David, because you are the only one who could see through his facade, the only one who wasn't blinded by the money." "I didn't see through it, Sarah," I admitted. The shame washed over me, hot and heavy. I invested everything I had in his company. I was a fool. "You were grieving, David," she said softly, covering my hand with hers. Her touch was grounding, reassuring. "You were vulnerable. He took advantage of that. He preyed on you." We talked late into the night. Sarah offered me her spare room. For as long as I needed, I lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, the image of Jessica's silent nod replaying in my mind. A nightmare on loop. The pain was sharp, fresh, but beneath the pain, something else was stirring. A familiar feeling, a sense of purpose. The next morning, Wednesday, I woke up with a cold, steady resolve. The numbness was gone, replaced by the familiar clarity of a mission. Kevin had made a mistake, a tactical error. He had underestimated me. He thought I was a helpless old man, discarded, useless, dependent. He didn't know that I was a soldier, and soldiers don't retreat. They regroup, and they fight back. I needed information, intelligence. I needed to assess the threat. "Sarah, I need your help," I said, joining her in the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the air, a familiar comfort. "I need to know everything about Apex Capital." Sarah, the librarian, the researcher, nodded grimly. "Let's take him down." We spent the day digging. Sarah navigated the deep web, public records, financial databases, news articles. She was relentless, methodical. I used my own contacts. I called Marcus Thorne, an old army buddy. We served together in the desert. Now he was a private cybersecurity expert, brilliant and discreet. "Marcus, it's David," I said, pacing Sarah's small living room. "I need a favor. Off the books." "Anything for you, Sergeant," Marcus replied, his voice gravelly. "What's the target?" "Apex Capital. Kevin Riley, my son-in-law." A pause on the other end of the line. A low whistle. "Family business, huh? Those are always the messiest." "What do you need?" "I need to know his reputation." "The whispers. And I need gear. The best you've got." Marcus worked fast. Within hours, he called back. The picture he painted was disturbing and familiar. "David, this Apex Capital is a ghost," Marcus said. "It's a black, very little public information. No transparency on holdings, strategies, other investors. And the returns?" I asked, dreading the answer. "He promised 20%, guaranteed." Marcus laughed, a dark, cynical sound. "In this market? Guaranteed 20%? David, that's not just impossible. That's a blatant lie." While Marcus prepared the gear, Sarah found something else. Something public and damning. "David," Sarah said, pointing to her laptop screen, "a forum dedicated to financial whistleblowers." Her fingers tapped rapidly on the keyboard. A sign she was onto something big. "Look at this." I read the posts. Anonymous users. Growing increasingly desperate. "The returns are too good to be true. No communication. I can't withdraw my funds. They are comparing it to Bernie Madoff." My blood ran cold. Madoff. The Ponzi scheme. The realization hit me hard, stealing my breath. It wasn't just about control. It was about deception. A massive, calculated deception. Kevin wasn't running a legitimate investment fund. He was running a scam. He was using my money, and the money of other unsuspecting investors, to pay fake returns to earlier investors, to create the illusion of success, to fund his lavish lifestyle. The cars, the parties, the glass house on the hill. He needed my signature not for efficiency, but to cover his tracks, to hide the fact that the money was disappearing into a bottomless pit of fraud. A paralyzing despair washed over me. My life savings, gone, stolen by my own son-in-law, the man my daughter chose. I wanted to give up, to accept defeat, to disappear into the comforting anonymity of Sarah's spare room. But then I thought of Kevin, getting away with it, destroying other people's lives, the arrogance in his eyes, the contempt in his voice. A cold fury ignited within me, a righteous anger. I had to fight back, not just for myself, but for justice, for the other victims. We needed proof, hard evidence. We needed to find the truth, and we needed help. If this story has you hooked, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this to light. And believe me, the real fight was just beginning. Sarah, we need to find someone on the inside, I said. The strategy forming in my mind. Someone who knows the truth about Apex. Someone who wants revenge. Sarah was already typing. I'm looking for former employees, disgruntled ones. There has to be someone. She found him. Thomas Stone, fired from Apex Capital 6 months ago. For incompetence. But his online footprint told a different story. A story of ethical concerns. Of questioning the numbers. I arranged a meeting, a dingy diner, on the outskirts of town, far from the glittering towers of the financial district. Thomas was nervous, jumpy. He kept looking over his shoulder, his hands trembling as he stirred his coffee. He looked young, idealistic, and terrified. Mr. Stone, I'm David, I said, sliding into the booth opposite him. I kept my tone calm, non-threatening. Kevin Riley is my son-in-law. Thomas flinched at the name. His face paled. I have nothing to say about Apex. I signed an NDA, a very strict one. He could sue me. He will ruin me. I know about the Ponzi scheme, Thomas, I said quietly, leaning forward. His eyes widened. Fear, but also a flicker of relief. The relief of finally sharing the burden. How did you know? He whispered, his voice cracking. I'm one of the victims. I invested everything I had. Thomas slumped back in the booth. Defeated, the fight drained out of him. He's a monster, a predator. He's stealing from everyone. Retirees, pension funds, charities. I tried to warn the partners, he continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. But there are no partners. It's all him, a one-man show, a house of cards. Where does he keep his records, Thomas? I asked, my voice steady. His real records. The shadow books. He has a home office, Thomas said, lowering his voice even further. Locked, always. He's paranoid, obsessed with security, cameras, sensors. I know the system, I confirmed. But what about the data? Is it all digital? Thomas hesitated. He looked around the diner again. No, he doesn't trust the cloud. Everything is on a local server in the office. Encrypted, military grade. He paused, then added the crucial detail. And he keeps a physical ledger, a black book. He thinks it's safer. It's in a wall safe, behind the big abstract painting. A physical ledger, the smoking gun. Thomas, you've done the right thing, I said. I slipped him an envelope with some cash. For his time. For his courage. Be careful, Thomas warned me as I left. Kevin is dangerous. When he's cornered, he doesn't just bite, he destroys. I went back to Sarah's. The intelligence was gathered. The target acquired. The ledger. I have to get into that office, I told Sarah. You're a security expert, David, Sarah reminded me. You know how to bypass those systems. The thought of breaking into the house, violating the sanctity of my daughter's home. It felt wrong, invasive, illegal. I could hire a private investigator, go through the proper channels, the SEC, the FBI, but that would take time. Weeks, months, time I didn't have. If Kevin suspected I was onto him, he would destroy the evidence. Burn the ledger, wipe the servers, disappear. I had to act quickly, decisively, even if it meant crossing a line I never thought I would cross. I do, I said, the plan forming in my mind. A tactical infiltration. But I need eyes on the ground, and I need the gear from Marcus. The gear arrived that afternoon, lock-picking tools. a high-frequency scanner to detect the sensors, and a specialized USB drive to crack the server password. We planned the operation meticulously. Sarah would watch the house, tracking Kevin's movements. We needed to know their routine, the gaps in the security. We set up surveillance. Thursday morning, day 2 of the outer shift. Sarah parked her car down the street, hidden behind a large tree. I waited in a nearby coffee shop, my nerves humming with the familiar adrenaline of a mission, the anticipation, the focus. We watched the house, waiting for the window of opportunity. We got an unexpected assist, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, the elderly neighbor across the street, always watching, always judging. The neighborhood watchdog, Sarah struck up a conversation with her, pretending to be interested in buying a house in the area. Mrs. Vance was more than happy to share the neighborhood gossip and her observations. "It's a beautiful area," Sarah said, sipping the tea. Mrs. Vance offered in her pristine living room, which had a perfect view of Kevin's driveway. "It used to be," Mrs. Vance sniffed, dusting her glasses. "Before the Rileys moved in, all those parties, and the strange visitors. Late at night." "Strange visitors?" Sarah asked, leaning in, her eyes fixed on the street. "Men in suits, carrying briefcases. They argue in the driveway. Loudly," Mrs. Vance confided. "Mr. Riley seems very stressed lately, always shouting on the phone. They go into the office, and they leave looking angry or scared. Investors, victims, coming to demand their money." The Ponzi scheme was starting to unravel. The pressure was mounting. Kevin was getting sloppy. Around 10 a.m., Sarah called. "Target on the move. Kevin just left. He looked furious. Jessica's taking Lily to a playdate. The house is empty. You have a 2-hour window, max." "I'm moving in," I said, hanging up the phone. The time for hesitation was over. I drove to the house. Parking my truck around the block, I walked up the driveway, the gravel crunching under my feet. The sound was too loud, too exposed. My heart hammered against my ribs. The house looked imposing, fortress-like, the glass walls reflecting the gray sky. I went around the back, to the basement window, the one I knew was always slightly loose. A security flaw I had noticed months ago, and never mentioned. Ironic. I slipped it open, lowered myself into the basement. The familiar smell of dust and mildew greeted me, the smell of my exile. I moved silently through the darkened basement, navigating the space by memory. My old room, the small cot, the cold floor. I reached the stairs leading up to the main floor. I hesitated at the top of the stairs. I was in enemy territory. The risks were high. If I got caught, I would lose everything. My freedom, my relationship with Jessica, forever. A sudden wave of doubt washed over me. What if I was wrong? What if Thomas was lying? What if I was risking everything based on a suspicion? A vendetta? But then I remembered the secrecy, the arrogance, the ultimatum, the look in his eyes when he called me a dependent. The silent nod from Jessica, my instincts, honed by years of experience, told me the truth. I had to trust my gut. I had to get that ledger. I moved quickly, efficiently, through the quiet house. The silence was eerie, oppressive. I reached the office door, locked, as expected. I pulled out my lock-picking kit, my hands steady, focused. The familiar weight of the tools comforting. The lock clicked open less than a minute. Kevin had spent thousands on electronic security, but neglected the basics. A rookie mistake. I slipped inside the office, closing the door silently behind me. The room was dark, the curtains drawn. Kevin's desk was massive. Mahogany, cluttered with papers, monitors, the symbols of his power. The throne of his fraudulent empire. First, the server, located in a ventilated cabinet under the desk. I plugged in the USB drive for Marcus. The software went to work, the progress bar crawling across the screen, each second stretching into an eternity. While the software worked, I went for the main objective. The ledger, the abstract painting. Large, ugly, expensive. I lifted it off the wall. There it was. The wall safe. A combination lock. I pulled out a stethoscope I brought with me. Old school technique. Listening to the tumblers fall into place. It took 10 minutes. My back aching. My nerves screaming. The silence in the room was absolute. I could hear my own heartbeat. The safe clicked open. Inside, stacks of cash. Passports with different names. Kevin's escape plan. And the ledger. A black, leather-bound book. I opened it. Handwritten. Entries. Names. Dates. Amounts. The real story of Apex Capital. The truth, written in ink. I quickly photographed every page of the ledger, my hands moving fast, efficient. I put the ledger back, closed the safe, replaced the painting. The USB drive beeped. Access granted to the server. I quickly navigated the files. They were encrypted, just as Thomas said, but the password cracker had done its job. I found the decryption key stored in the server's memory. I decrypted the files, the digital shadow books. It was worse than I imagined. 2 sets of books. The facade, showing phenomenal returns, and the reality, showing massive losses. A complex web of offshore accounts. Cayman Islands, Panama, Switzerland. I found my account, my $500,000, gone. Transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands. Just days ago, he was ready to run. I downloaded everything. The evidence was damning. I was about to leave. When I heard it, the front door opened. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Lily's voice, echoing in the hallway. Jessica was back. Early, the playdate was canceled. Panic flared. Cold, sharp. I was trapped. I quickly wiped down the server, the safe, the desk. Removed the USB drive. Locked the office door from the inside. Looked around the room, an escape route. The window, it overlooked the backyard. I slipped out the window, landing softly on the grass. The impact jarring my knees. I ignored the pain. I moved quickly, staying in the shadows. The training kicking in, evasion, extraction, until I reached the fence. I scaled the fence, disappeared into the neighborhood. I met Sarah back at the coffee shop, my heart pounding in my chest. The adrenaline slowly receding. I handed her the USB drive. The weight of it heavy in my hand. The weight of the truth. "It's all here," I said, my voice grim. "The digital records. And the photos of the ledger. He's a thief, a fraud, a monster." Sarah reviewed the files, her face pale with shock. The magnitude of the crime sinking in.
"David, this is massive."
Millions of dollars. Dozens of victims. He has ruined so many lives. And he was willing to destroy mine to keep his secret safe, I added. The bitterness coating every word. I held the power to destroy Kevin's life in my hands, to expose his crimes, to send him to prison. But doing so would also destroy Jessica and Lily. They would lose everything. The house, the money, the reputation. They would be the collateral damage of Kevin's greed. A conflict raged within me, the father versus the soldier, the desire to protect my daughter versus the need for justice. I could confront Kevin privately, try to recover my money, protect my daughter from the fallout, the scandal, the pain, but I knew true justice required exposure. Accountability. I thought of the other victims. The retirees, the families. I had to let the truth come out. "We have to report this, David," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We have to contact the authorities." "I know," I said, the weight of the decision settling heavy on my shoulders. "And we need the right person. We needed someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Kevin's wealth, someone relentless." Sarah found her, Agent Miller, SEC Fraud Division, known for taking down high-profile fraudsters. Sharp, no nonsense. I called her office, left a message. "Agent Miller, my name is David Riley. I have evidence of a massive Ponzi scheme. Apex Capital. I need to meet you. Urgently." She called back within the hour. We met in a secure location, a government building downtown. I laid out the evidence. The USB drive. The photos of the ledger, the offshore accounts. The 2 sets of books. Agent Miller reviewed the files, her expression hardening. their eyes sharp, focused. "This is meticulous, Mr. Riley," Miller said, looking up from the screen. "A classic Ponzi scheme. And you obtained this evidence, how?" "I retrieved it from his home office," I admitted, holding her gaze. She paused, considering the implications. "The evidence is compelling, damning. This is enough to get a warrant, to freeze his assets. To move in, we need to move fast," I insisted. "He's getting desperate. He has passports. Cash is ready to run." "We will," Miller assured me. "The cavalry is coming, but I need you to be prepared. This is going to get ugly." The wheels of justice started turning, faster now. That evening I sat in Sarah's living room, watching the news. The financial markets were volatile, rumors of a major investigation. The dominoes were starting to fall. Kevin must have felt the walls closing in. The noose tightening. It started around 8 p.m. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Seeing her name flash on the screen twisted my heart. My instinct was to answer, to comfort her, to warn her about the impending disaster. But I knew she was still under Kevin's influence. She might betray me again. She might warn him. I had to maintain the silence, protect the mission, even though her desperation was a siren song, pulling me back into the chaos. I ignored it. A few minutes later, it buzzed again. "Kevin." I ignored it. The calls kept coming, relentless, desperate, a barrage of digital cries for help. Friday morning, day 3. I woke up to a barrage of missed calls. 15. 8:30. I checked the voicemails. The first one. Kevin, his voice tight. Barely concealed rage. "David, call me immediately. We need to talk. This is urgent. Stop this nonsense." Then Jessica, shaky, tearful. "Dad, please call me. Kevin is really stressed. The bank called. Our accounts are frozen. Please, Dad, come home. We need you." Then Kevin again, the desperation creeping in, the mask of control slipping. "David, stop being so stubborn. This is serious. My business is on the line. Your daughter's future is on the line. Call me back now. Don't ruin everything." The final voicemail. Silence, punctuated by the sound of Lily crying in the background. Hearing Lily's cry shattered my resolve, the sound of her innocence, contrasting sharply with the darkness of the situation, the ugliness of the truth. I wanted to rush back, to protect her, to shield her from the pain, to hold her in my arms, and tell her everything was going to be okay. But I knew it wasn't going to be okay. Not for a long time. And I knew that any intervention now would be seen as weakness, an opportunity for Kevin to manipulate the situation, to use Lily as leverage. I had to stand firm, let the consequences play out, even if it meant my granddaughter suffered in the short term. I checked my call log. 37 missed calls. "They are drowning," I said to Sarah, the weight of my actions heavy on my heart. "They are," she confirmed. She had been monitoring the news. "The SEC froze Apex Capital's assets this morning. The investigation is official. Kevin is cornered. It's time," I said, my voice steady, but my soul weary. "Let's go face the music." We arrived at the house at noon, the driveway cluttered with expensive cars. Kevin's Porsche, Jessica's SUV, the symbols of a stolen life, a life built on lies. The pristine facade of the house couldn't hide the chaos inside, the tension radiating from the glass walls. Before we could even knock, Kevin yanked the door open. He looked terrible. Rumpled suit, disheveled hair, eyes bloodshot, frantic. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, hunted look. The look of a cornered animal. "David." "Finally, thank God." His voice was falsely cheerful, strained, the desperation leaking through the cracks in his facade. "This is all a big misunderstanding, a paperwork snafu, a clerical error. Come in, come in." We walked into the grand foyer. The house was silent, the air thick with tension, the smell of fear hanging heavy in the air. Jessica was sitting on the sofa, holding Lily in her lap. She looked small, fragile, utterly defeated, her face streaked with tears. When she saw me, Her eyes filled with fresh tears, a mixture of relief and shame.
Dad,
She whispered, her voice hoarse. I'm so sorry. Please, help us. Kevin shot her a venomous look. Jessica, pull yourself together. We need to handle this. He turned to me, the fake smile plastered back on his face, a grotesque mask. David, looked to admit I was harsh the other day. Stress, you know? The pressure of the market. I apologize. But we're family. We look out for each other. We protect each other. Do we? I asked quietly, my voice cutting through the tension. The two words hanging in the air, an accusation. Of course. Now about this. Investigation business. He waved a dismissive hand, as if swatting away an annoying fly. A clerical error, obviously. The SEC is overreacting, blowing things out of proportion. We just need to present a united front. He paused, lowering his voice, his eyes darting around the room, paranoid. We need you to sign a statement, confirming that you authorized the transfer of your funds, that it was a misunderstanding, a gift, even. We can fix this, David. Together, he was asking me to lie, to commit perjury, to become an accomplice to his crimes, to save his skin. I can't do that, Kevin, I said, my voice calm. Resolute. Kevin's smile vanished. The mask slipped again. His eyes turned cold, filled with a sudden vicious hatred, the desperation turning into rage. Listen, you old fool, he snarled, dropping the facade completely. The monster underneath finally revealed. You have to do this. If you don't, we lose everything. I go to jail. Jessica and Lily end up on the street. Is that what you want? He was using them as shields. My daughter, my granddaughter. A despicable, cowardly act. You did this to yourself, Kevin, I said, my voice hardening. You lied. You stole. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. You destroyed your own family. I did it for us, he screamed, his voice cracking, the sound echoing in the vast empty house, a desperate cry of a delusional man, for the lifestyle we deserve, for Jessica, for Lily, the lifestyle built on fraud, Sarah added, stepping forward, her presence commanding, her voice ringing with authority. Kevin looked at her, surprised. He hadn't realized she was there. He hadn't realized he was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. I know about the Ponzi scheme, Kevin, I said, pulling the USB drive from my pocket, placing it on the coffee table. A small plastic grenade, the pin pulled. I know about the offshore accounts. I paused, letting the final blow land. And I know about the ledger, the black book in the safe. Kevin staggered back as if I had struck him. His face turned ashen. The color drained from his cheeks. He knew he was caught. The game was up. It's over, Jessica gasped, her hands flying to her face. She looked at Kevin, realization dawning in her eyes, the horrible truth finally breaking through the fog of denial. The veil lifted. Kevin, what is he talking about? A Ponzi scheme? A ledger? Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. You said the investments were safe. You said we were secure. You promised me. Kevin didn't answer. He just stared at the USB drive, paralyzed by fear, his empire crumbling around him. He lied to you, Jessica, I said gently, but firmly. He lied to everyone. There is no Apex Capital. There are no returns. The money is gone. All of it. Jessica looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. Horror. The life she had sacrificed her father for was a lie, built on a foundation of fraud, deception, greed. No, she whispered, shaking her head, denial still clinging to her like a shroud. No, it can't be true. Tell me it's not true, Kevin. Kevin remained silent. His silence was a confession. It is true, Jessica, I said. And now the authorities are involved. The assets are frozen. The investigation is underway. Kevin lunged for the USB drive, desperation fueling his movements, a last, futile attempt to regain control. But I was faster. I grabbed it, my reflexes still sharp, the soldier still alive within me. It's too late, Kevin, I said, my voice cold. The evidence is secure. Agent Miller has copies. The SEC, the FBI, they know everything. Kevin collapsed onto the sofa, his face buried in his hands. His body trembled, the sound of his ragged breaths filling the silence. The sound of a man drowning. Jessica stood up, clutching Lily tightly. She walked towards me, her eyes filled with pain. Regret, a desperate plea for forgiveness. "Dad," she cried, the tears streaming down her face. The dam finally breaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." She paused, the guilt overwhelming her, the realization of her complicity crashing down on her. "I was so blind, so stupid. I chose him over you. I betrayed you." She fell to her knees in front of me, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Dad. Please forgive me. Please don't leave us. We need you." I looked at her. My daughter, the weight of the past few days, hung heavy between us. The betrayal still stung. The trust was broken. The wounds were deep. But she was still my daughter, and she was finally seeing the truth. She was finally free from his spell. I knelt down, wrapped my arms around her, holding her tightly. She clung to me, her body shaking with the force of her sobs. Lily, nestled between us, whimpered softly. "I forgive you, Jessica," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, my own tears finally falling. "I forgive you." We held each other for a long time, the silence broken only by the sound of Jessica's cries, the sound of healing beginning, and the distant wail of sirens. Approaching the house, Kevin looked up, his eyes wide with terror. The sirens were getting louder. The consequences had arrived. The reckoning was here. The fallout was swift, brutal. Kevin was arrested, handcuffed, led away by Agent Miller and a team of SEC agents. In front of the neighbors, Mrs. Vance watched from her window, a grim satisfaction on her face. The media, alerted by the flurry of activity, swarmed the house. The cameras flashing, capturing his downfall, his crimes exposed to the world. The scandal was front-page news. Apex Capital, the Ponzi scheme, the mastermind, the betrayal. The victims came forward. Dozens of families, their stories heartbreaking, their anger palpable. Thomas Stone testified against Kevin, his voice shaking but resolute. He finally got his justice. Kevin was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 20 years in Everett prison. Jessica and Lily were devastated. They lost everything: the house, the cars, the lifestyle, the illusion of security. They were forced to move, a small apartment on the other side of town, the reality of their situation crashing down on them. The adjustment was hard. Painful. Jessica was questioned by the authorities, but Agent Miller knew the truth. Jessica was a victim of Kevin's manipulation, not an accomplice. She had been blinded by the promise of a perfect life. As for me, I had lost most of my money. The recovery process would take years. The lawyers told me I would likely only see pennies on the dollar, but I still had my dignity, my integrity, and I still had my family. I moved in with Sarah, temporarily, helping her take care of Jessica and Lily. Jessica was broken, consumed by guilt, remorse, shame. It took time, patience, unconditional love, to help her heal, to help her find her strength again, to help her forgive herself. I reopened my security consulting firm. The scandal, ironically, brought me new clients, people who wanted to protect themselves from fraud, from deception, from the wolves in sheep's clothing. Marcus joined me as a partner. We specialized in forensic accounting and cybersecurity. We were busy, focused, rebuilding our lives, one step at a time. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. The wounds slowly started to heal. The scars remained, a reminder of the battle we fought. I was sitting in Sarah's living room, reading a book. Lily was playing on the floor, building a tower with wooden blocks. The sound of her laughter filling the room, a sound of hope. Jessica walked in. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. The fog had lifted. She had gotten a job, a teacher's assistant at Lily's school. She was slowly finding her way back to the strong, independent woman I knew, the woman Mary raised. Dad, she said, sitting next to me on the sofa. I wanted to talk to you. What is it, honey? I asked, putting down my book. I received a letter from Kevin, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The name still held a painful power over her. From prison. He apologized. He said he was sorry for everything he did. And how do you feel about that? I asked gently, watching her closely. I don't know, she admitted, twisting the ring on her finger. The expensive diamond was gone, replaced by a simple silver band. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. But I also feel pity. He destroyed his life, Dad. He destroyed so many lives, all for money. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a newfound wisdom, a maturity born from pain. I realized something, Dad. I realized that money doesn't define us. It doesn't protect us. It doesn't bring us happiness. She paused, taking a deep breath. Only love does that. Only family. She reached out, took my hand, her grip firm, strong. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for showing me what truly matters. Thank you for never giving up on me. A tear rolled down my cheek. The scars of the betrayal would always be there. The pain would never completely disappear. But as I sat there, holding my daughter's hand, watching my granddaughter play, I knew we were going to be okay. We had faced the storm, and we had survived. We had lost everything, but we had found each other again. I looked at the framed photo of Mary on the mantelpiece. Her smile seemed brighter, warmer. I knew she would be proud. I had protected what mattered. I had fought the good fight. And I had won. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.